Welcome into HogvilleNET YouTube Live. I'm your host, Kevin McPherson. This is our Sunday afternoon edition, big weekend. Not only did the football Hogs make history with Arkansas State down here in the 501 at War Memorial Stadium, I was there to help cover that for HogvilleNET, but also a big basketball visit weekend, second consecutive weekend, where John Calipari and his basketball program, the Razorbacks, hosted a national top five rated five-star guard. This one from the left coast. People are already asking about the visit. That's what we're here to talk about. We're going to talk about that and some new intel, not only on the visit. I got tons of stuff to share with you about the visit. So, as it concludes today, but also some intel on the latest I'm hearing from practices for basketball. We're not getting a ton of photos out of there, let alone videos, photos, all the things that we crave. We haven't gotten quite enough of, not for my appetite anyway. I think most of you'd feel the same way. But let's get into this visit. As we say, congratulations in the Hogs 56-14, first time ever. Arkansas is obviously the heavyweight in the state in all sports, but in football, an SEC program, Sun Belt, which is, a good conference in football, and ASU's had a strong football program over the years, back when it was competing in 1AA under Larry Lacewell, some other stuff. There's a lot of history for both programs at different levels, but they had never met. So, and then War Memorial Stadium might be the last hurrah there for the Razorbacks. It was their 220th game, all time going back to the late 40s, and it was their 154th win. So a good record there. It was packed. I guess the published official seating capacity is 54,120. They actually got 124 in, more than that number. They've exceeded the number before. I think they were between 55 and 56,000 back in the 90s when they first joined the SEC playing Alabama in Little Rock. I remember that game. So this was a big crowd, a lot of good ASU fans there. Anyway, let's move past that. Arkansas is now 2-0, road game against 20th ranked Ole Miss, who remained unbeaten with a 7-point win over Kentucky. That's one we'll be paying attention to next week. But man, we got to talk basketball. We're 2.5 minutes in, the lead is and should be Brandon McCoy Jr. Last week it was Caleb Holt. Again, both of them top five rated five-star guards. That's how I have them ranked. Holt tied for second with George Smith Jr., who's same class 2026, who's coming in to visit Arkansas in a couple of weeks. And then McCoy this week, and I got ranked fifth. So second and fifth depends on the various national services. That's my top there. That's where they stand in my top 25. Some of these other services have McCoy at number 2. I think On3 has him as the second best player in the country. At one point, he was like a consensus top player ahead of Tyron Stokes, who's kind of took the reins over every publication's number one months back. But still, it tells you how good McCoy is. Big, long, athletic guard at 6'5". Big official visit. We were telegraphing that it was coming up in September. And then we told you that this September 5 through 7 weekend, which we're still in, it's Sunday, would likely be it. And then we were able to confirm last week, just kind of waiting around for him to make it public. Just went ahead and came on one of these shows midweek and said, look, it's going to happen this weekend. It's going down. Things can change at the last minute, but we didn't see that happening. And sure enough, it came out late Friday. I mean, it wasn't even early in the day, later in the afternoon, that he was actually already on campus and his visit had started. Similar to Caleb Holt, he got there. Sometimes these weekend visits, guys fly in late in the evening. They get in late. Not the case with either Holt a week ago or McCoy this weekend. They both got in at least the afternoon, early afternoon, and getting into town, into Fayetteville. So it depends on who you ask, but I've gotten feedback from multiple sources on various things about this visit. And we said that it was a grand slam home run last week with Caleb Holt. We had sources that think Arkansas is either the team to beat or going to be hard to beat. That's what my two sources said. Every bit of feedback I got from Arkansas side of things, plus what my interview with Caleb Holt post-visit, I mean, it was a grand slam home run. And the idea was, I said, this is as close as I can get to naming Arkansas a leader for somebody outside of J.J. Andrews and maybe Abdou Toure. My commentary was, if he had to make it a commitment announcement today or within the week before he goes anywhere else, he would pick Arkansas. Then I said I couldn't give a full-throated projection ahead if he takes his other visits, and with how NIL and some of these SEC teams, which he's focused on SEC programs in terms of what's coming up in his visits, with their ability to jump up and leapfrog in NIL and their willingness to do that, that I couldn't say that Arkansas is the clear team to beat going beyond the first week and looking ahead to what he might get from other teams and what his experiences are on those visits. Well, he was set up for a Kentucky visit this weekend. I don't have feedback on that. But jumping back to Brandon McCoy Jr., because we kind of set the stage with what happened with Holt and the fact that Calipari, coming off a home run official visit, did not go out in the first few days of the recruiting period to see Holt. He went and saw other players. But with McCoy Jr. coming in, he also didn't go out to see him to make sure things were still good to get him in. So this is part of this is a statement about Calipari and how he's choosing to navigate what perceptions are in terms of, well, if you're in the final 2 or 3, or you might be the leader, then you've got to have an immediate presence on their campus as soon as you can. Not necessarily with him. Most programs and coaches, it works that way, not necessarily with Calipari. So it's an interesting dynamic because he's had face time bringing players on campus the last 2 weekends in that sense, but he hasn't gone on the road to have that face time yet, when he could have either Wednesday or Thursday, arriving back again to Fayetteville to start this as this official visit was getting started. So that's also interesting. But let's drill down on the McCoy visit. We're nearly 6.5 minutes in, and we haven't gotten any details yet other than when he arrived and that it concludes today. So let's do that now. 2 sources have told me I've got these 2 things in quotations. One source tells me that the visit, this was mid-visit, is going exceptionally well, that the visit's going exceptionally well. Another one said, great throughout the weekend. So that one was earlier today. That one I got earlier today, this morning. So we got exceptionally well and great throughout the weekend. You can put quotes around those. That's how it was framed for me. So we're already getting some feedback from folks that are, in these rooms, dialed in on these visits, and these aren't third-hand accounts. They're coming from folks with direct contact in one way or another what's going on this weekend. A couple of other things. I was told, similar to Caleb Holt last week, to expect, the plan was for there to be 2 practices, basketball practices, just like Holt got to have, for Brandon McCoy Jr. this weekend. There was no home football game. That was played in Little Rock, so you didn't have that in your schedule. He did, though, in addition to, I'm told, the 2 practices, that was the expectation. But I was also told that he was spotted at Arkansas's volleyball game Friday night with his player host, Darius Acuff Jr. Well, that's one top 5 rated 5-star guard from the previous class to another. That's a great way to conduct business if you're John Calipari and the Arkansas Razorbacks. Darius Acuff Jr., apparently the player host, volleyball game, in attendance there, a lot of smiles. I'm told the vibes were really good in terms of interacting, and just looked like he was having a really good time. That's what I was told. The other thing was, through the weekend with Acuff, and this is the kind of thing, players go out, they do stuff. That's part of the visit. It's not all business. There's some fun in there. Dixon Street, there was a Dixon Street presence. Again, Acuff hanging with Brandon McCoy Jr. And I'm told that there was really positive interaction with fans and students, whoever was out, and recognized him. Arkansas fans are savvy. They know who's coming in for visits. They know what the scene is, and they know what these players look like. I mean, they're dialed in, and so they know what to expect. And I heard that in these interactions that Brandon McCoy Jr. was, throwing things back like "Go Hogs" or "Woo Pig" and stuff like that. So there was, it wasn't one of those things where sometimes with fan interaction, maybe there's cringe moments or miscommunication, or you're not, you're a player on a visit. You got to expect that the fans and students are going to interact with you, sure. But some players folks handle it differently. And it sounds like he was really engaged and knew what to say, knew what to say in terms of how he responded. I think I want McCoy slightly more than Holt. Well, that's, that you can't go wrong either way. You can't go wrong either way. And I said this recently in different ways. One is I have a source that knows or has been in conversations about Calipari's philosophy about this class. In general, it's 3 or 4. He's already got J.J. Andrews off the board, the 5-star at Little Rock, so 2 or 3 more. But he might go to 5 if it's the right combination of players. in this high school class. The other thing is, I've said over and over again, with all these different 5-star guards, Holt, McCoy, we mentioned Jordan Smith Jr. in a couple of weeks, then Tay Kenny. We'll see if any of those change or don't ever happen. Those things play out as recruiting moves along, and especially when you're getting later visits. But with 4 or 5-star guards, I've always said, I believe Calipari is going to get at least one, but there's ways this could work out where you get more than one from the same position group, where you could get to 4 or 5 instead of 3 or 4. And again, include J.J. Andrews in those numbers. If you want to subtract him out because he's already committed, then it's 2 or 3 more, or 3 or 4 more. One of those kind of things. So, or 2 to 4 more. So we look at it that way. All right. So McCoy, throwing out giving responses like "Go Hogs" and "Woo Pig." I thought that was cool. And then the other thing was, which I thought was really cool, I have another source that's just giving me in general what the vibe is with McCoy as a person, just in terms of his character, his personality. And here's what they said. I'm going to quote it: "Big personality with a great sense of humor." So it sounds like he's having fun because he's a fun guy. That probably will translate to other visits if he takes them. We haven't been in a position coming off the Caleb Holt visit to suggest that there was a silent commitment there. We can't rule it out to Arkansas, only that it was a home grand slam, and that if he had to choose today based on everything we were getting, he'd pick Arkansas. With Brandon McCoy Jr., the visit's going exceptionally well, the first report. Then today, great throughout the weekend. You like to hear that. You like to hear the interaction with fans and students. You like to hear that the guy's got that big personality. He wears it on his sleeve in a good way, great sense of humor. But it's like the Holt thing we talked about. NIL is going to play a big part in it when you're talking a national top 5 kind of guy, a 5-star player. Then you also have the fact that other programs have a lot to sell as well. And you got these guys in early too. So we'll see. Holt's recruitment was pretty quiet relative to Arkansas in terms of how fast we learned of the visit and it happening the same week. But we'd been telling you for a couple of weeks that it was being finalized, and it had been eventually finalized. But the actual playing out of things, going public and the visit happening, was really quick. But there's been more in general about his recruitment over a while, like the in-state schools for him, the home state schools, Alabama and Auburn being up there, Kentucky, maybe some other options. But with McCoy, yeah, there's been some of that, but maybe not even as much as Holt. And Holt's, again, everything's not been out for public consumption, even with him, relative to some others. And then McCoy, even a lesser level. So that's what I'm trying to say. It's been kind of quiet. At the end of the day, there's probably 10 teams, truly 3 or 4, maybe 2 or 3, but maybe 10 teams that he's considering visiting. When you look at the totality of it, a lot of it's West Coast flavor, which is where he is. He plays this year. He's upcoming Sierra Canyon in Los Angeles. Last year it was St. John Bosco. And remember, Calipari's been recruiting him for at least 2 years. And then last year, as a new Arkansas coach, he was out when this recruiting period opened up in September. He was out on the road to St. John Bosco there in LA to see McCoy. Then McCoy missed the spring playing on the Nike circuit, came back for July, actually came back before that for Team USA U19 World Cup. We've talked about all this. And it was assistant coach Chuck Martin over in Switzerland to see him during that. And then Calipari courtside for both July live periods. They're starting mid-July through the late part of the month on the Nike EYBL Session 4 that then blended in and became Nike Peach Jam. Calipari courtside for everything that McCoy did. So big situation there. But when you think about Arkansas, Duke, Alabama, we've heard for a while that those teams would be in play in an open recruitment, that it really wasn't necessarily dialed down to a top 2 or 3. I've always kind of felt like maybe those 3 plus UCLA and USC would be maybe the strongest candidates for a top 5. I think there's some other teams when you start looking at the possibilities with San Diego State, California, Stanford, Arizona State. Some of those teams out west, put in the mix as possibilities to move up, or even maybe they are closer to the top 5 than they are in that second 5. So there's still a number of schools, and we'll see what plays out. Again, your options run from him shutting things down and committing to Arkansas, which, I don't expect that. I think it's possible. I think what's more likely is he takes other visits. But we'll see what happens. Again, we had a stronger feeling at this point on Sunday about Holt's visit because I got to interview him, and we were just getting all of these big, huge updates through the weekend, how great the practices were. I haven't gotten feedback on on the practices yet in terms of what the vibe was like in there. I've given you some of the other stuff where it's positive, and maybe it's not as deep and it's not as much of a deep dive on the intel on the ins and outs of the visit, other than it's been really positive and really good. If I had to say that it was another home run visit, I don't know that I'd call it a grand slam, but I'd say it's probably, a home run just based on what I've gotten so far. I'd like to hear a little bit more before coming to a full circle to that conclusion on this Brandon McCoy Jr. visit. Although again, I think it's really good. And then I go back to the question that I've already proposed. Now that Cal's got both of these visits in, now that and we know that when the live recruiting periods opened up midweek, it started Wednesday, didn't give you a whole lot of time since you were coming back to host a visitor to be there on time Friday for an early arrival, not a nighttime arrival. You were really out on the road for 2 days, and you did not go out and see Holt, who you just had a grand slam with, and you didn't go out and see McCoy. Again, a lot of times you see coaches before the visit, especially one upcoming quickly, will make sure they're out to see him if they've got an opportunity to, and then, kind of flow into the weekend visit. Calipari operates in different ways. He's not on the same playing field as others. He's already a Hall of Fame established coach. And again, I'll say it again for the millionth time, the greatest high school recruiter ever. He knows what he's doing, and he has rhymes and reasons for what he's done. Now, sometimes it can be just as simple as, well, he hasn't gone because something's changed and they're not as much of a priority as they once were. Not the case with these two players. Now, in real time, things change quickly. So what I say now could be different later today or tonight or tomorrow. But for now, this is about Calipari's process. Not a whole lot to read between the lines when trying to apply typical standards to what you observe with how programs deal with these off-campus visits and coordinating those with upcoming on-campus visits. Now, it's not entirely true that wasn't important to Calipari, because the stops he did make in those 2 days were the players that he's prioritizing that are coming to visit later, but a bit later down the road. And so there's more time between making sure you go to see them and when you need them to come in, because that's how you've got it scheduled. With these two, everything was happening all within the vacuum of basically the same week. One weekend bookending another weekend with 5 business days in between, and you didn't even have all 5 of those that you could go out and see players. Only 2 again. So you had to, if you're Calipari, again, you've got your reasons for how you did things. 18 minutes in, thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. Look, the McCoy visit sounds great. It sounds great. I just don't have as much as I did last week. I can't wait to get more. I thought about holding off, but my Monday is going to be interesting with some more appointments and things I have, and I don't want to cram in one of these. We could go early, and we may still do that. I may find out enough that I need to come back on, and we do one early Monday morning. Maybe not. We'll see. But I'm getting in as much as I can today. I've got other obligations today as well, both related to covering basketball, football, and some personal stuff as well. So I hope we've got enough in here to make it worth your while. I think a lot of this stuff's really good. Also, we're still waiting on, I think it's interesting, timing on when do the photos come out from I'm assuming he went through the photo shoot stuff like everybody else. He'll probably drop those on his Instagram account, some combination of that, or sometimes they'll send it to a national media person or somebody else. They'll get out there, but they haven't yet since I came on and started doing this. So I'm interested to see some of those. I thought the Caleb Holt ones were really good. I'm sure the ones with Brandon McCoy Jr. will be as well. It's hard to mess that up. Arkansas does a good job of that stuff. They've got good props and good poses, and they've got a good feel on that kind of thing. But still, as we talk now, we're still waiting on that. All right, nearly 20 minutes in. Once again, thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. I'm Kevin McPherson. If you haven't done it already, please hit subscribe, like, and share. That helps us out. We appreciate that. Practice. Let's talk practice. Got more intel over the weekend about what was going on inside the building last week. And yes, I've got the Twin Tower updates. I got some more updates on Paulo Samito and Elmer Javich. Remember, we didn't have a summer of any kind of feedback, June or July, with practice stuff with them because they weren't on campus. They didn't get here until the fall semester. They've only been here for a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks now. And so we're trying to get as much information as we can. And we got some more. Last week we were talking, Samito trying to dunk everything, still trying to figure out the nuances of footwork offensively, how to make the best play and not resolve to using all that length and wingspan and all of that. And really what are impossible situations where what else do I do? But maybe I get lucky and hammer one. You always get frustrated with big men that don't dunk when they should, but there's an opposite to that. And there's sometimes if you don't know what you're really doing just yet, you might try to do things that you can't finish the play. So there was that. So we talked about that, trying to learn the nuances offensively. This week's report was more of a defensive follow-up. And I'm told Arkansas really likes the promise he's showing as a potential plus defender, maybe even an elite defender around the basket. And some of his quickness, light off his feet, able to get out of his area to protect the rim, altering shots. With that wingspan and height, as he continues to get stronger and add weight, he could be a real problem inside. And we talked about just speculating before that he was going to, just as a practice player alone, let alone let's figure out what his role and minutes and all that might be later. But just as a practice guy, it's going to change. It's going to challenge. It's going to push Arkansas's veteran front court guys to get better or be better because now they have to deal with him and all that size, length, and quick off his feet and athleticism. And I'm told that he's showing defensive promise, that the staff feels like at some point he's going to be a real positive defensively for them. Again, year one, that's not the source information right now, but who knows? Maybe. I mean, they just got him. So we're paying attention to this with Paulo Samito. Javich just, he's going to be a work in progress, but they're seeing already some strides with him just on timing of things because he's not going to out jump anybody. He's not going to, get end to end faster than other big men. He's not agile, that kind of thing. He's a plodding under the basket, 285-pound 7-footer. But he can use that body and frame and I'm hearing that he's already starting to figure out a little bit how to gain space by using that frame, being a space eater, leaning into people, knocking people around a little bit. He's going to have to do that. Doesn't mean that he's progressing so much that he's going to be ready to slip into a rotation this year. He might even be a couple of years away from getting to the point where going into a year 3, something like that. I mean, I'm not saying that's where that's headed. I'm just saying right now, you don't want to leave off you don't want to just, over pump something and set expectations that might not be realistic. In a couple of weeks, we might hear, hey, guess what? He's made so much improvement. He's starting to put things together. He can help us next year. I mean, the intel will change or it won't, based on what players do and what we learn as we go forward. But for now, it sounded positive for both of those guys. Javich making strides with how to use his body, use that physicality, use that weight, and then Samito really showing promise as they continue to watch some of the things he's doing defensively down the road. Offense, also for him, obviously any player wants to continue to improve and be a work in progress. But for guys that you can't vision right away with big roles and being in that top 2 rotation, the plan is a little extended, right? It's a little further out until they do something to show you maybe you can fast track it. I think those are all positive feedbacks on those guys. Look, there was a photo that Calipari tweeted out over the weekend with Javich standing next to the Arkansas. Is he a congressman? Is he a senator or a House or is he a representative? I think Womack's a senator. I'm not Steve Womack. And Womack apparently was instrumental in helping get Javich cleared to get his whatever visa stuff, whatever was needed to come over to the United States to play college basketball this year. So I thought that was a cool shout out from Calipari. But the reason I bring it up is it's just another proof, photographic proof of just how large this man is, Elmer Javich. He is a large man. I call him, what was the nickname I gave him? Hulk Hogan. Tribute to Hulk Hogan, but I'm calling Jovic Hulk Hogan. Just big everywhere, head to toe, big guy. So good stuff on the newcomers. How about some of the guys that we're counting on in the rotation this year? It continues to be Darius Acuff Jr. and DJ Wagner in the backcourt. What I haven't been able to figure out is, because I think those guys are guarding each other a lot, just like it was last year in practices with Boogie Fland and DJ Wagner, how it's going to work in combination when they're on the court together, because both of them are they're at their best as a primary handler, offense initiator, even though in both cases I think they're better as scorers than they are facilitators. Acuff and DJ, I continue to hear rave reviews about what they're showing in practices. Man, that goes a long way, because DJ's your veteran guy, Acuff is your potential one and done, and they're both going to be the trigger men for just about everything your offense does. I guess other players like a Billy Richmond III as your third option, as running some offense through him. Sometimes you'll use your bigs, even to some degree, probably Malik Ewan, running stuff through him and letting him trigger some things with the ball in his hands in those two-man actions out high. Maybe some Malik Thomas. We saw that in that 1 hour practice way back in July, when we were looking at a lot of that drill work and 5-on-5, 4-on-4 stuff. We saw some stuff being run through Malik Thomas. But Acuff and DJ getting tons of praise. We've heard good stuff about each of Arkansas's three veteran big men, starting out with Nick Pringle in mid-June. Then it was Trevor Brazile still on the show in the summer. Our last report, it was Malik Ewan, and he's really starting to, kind of stand out. This time around, things circled back. We went full circle back to Pringle. Speaking of defense, I'm told that the more and more they see from him defensively, the more and more they like. And this is why we go back and forth. Who's going to start at that 5 spot? We feel certain Trevor Brazile's got the 4 spot locked down. Stretch 4. The 5 spot, I think there's starter value in both Pringle and Ewan. And it's just a matter of, do you want to start with a stronger defender? If you do, you want to start games that way, Pringle starting games. If you want to go with the guy that's probably the more well-rounded player, obviously offensively more of a weapon, more of a force, you might go, you then would probably pick Malik Ewan. I think both of them bring starter value. I think both of them, no matter who technically is on the floor to begin games, maybe they alternate that some, I don't know. But you love to hear that both of them are turning heads and doing things that are, apparent as positives that will impact this team positively. So that's great stuff. I hope you went and watched the sit down I had with Scotty Thurman that I did on Thursday in real time. Then I published it on Friday on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. Go check it out if you haven't seen it. We talked a lot of stuff, and Scotty said, look, I expect this to be a Final Four team. I mean, here's a guy that, that's not silly talk from someone who's one of the best players ever to come through the program, won a national championship, appeared in 2 title games, played the toughest schedule in school history up until maybe this year, where this season will replace that one in terms of how tough when you add non-con and league together compared to that one. So here's someone that is talking about things we're talking about that's pressing and relevant now because he went through it. And so one of the things he said is, I said, give me a big 3. Back in the day, it was Scotty Corliss and Corey Beck. You had a lot of great players, but if you had to pick a big 3, that was it. I said, give me a big 3 here. And he said, Acuff, Carter Knox. No disrespect to DJ. He's a hell of a glue guy, but he went from Acuff and Carter Knox, and then he threw in Malik Ewan. So his perspective is, because of Ewan's offense, he is a good rebounder. He's a strong offensive rebounder as well. But his pick from the front line for the big 3 was Ewan. He basically said Trevor Brazile's an X factor. I don't want to give everything away. There's a lot more he talked about, a lot more we got into. Go check that out. But we are talking about practice. Here we are talking about practice, not a game. We don't have games. We don't even have pictures or videos from practice. So we got to talk about practice. Thank you, Allen Iverson. I use it all the time. I love it. So we'll wrap with this. We're nearly 30 minutes in. We're about to hit 30. I sometimes get under 30. I had a 29-minute segment the other day. Just one more thing. We mentioned this recently, the preseason stuff. We know we're waiting on the schedule to come out. We know Arkansas will have 2 exhibition games, charity exhibition games. We know who they are. At least one of them is. The other one's been rumored. But those will be late October. Will they do a red-white game? We brought that up. Will they do something like that? Or will they do another road show where they go take it on the road for fans, and it's not really a game, it's more about a practice, talking practice again, where they do some stuff. But last year that was a weekend, 2 stops on one weekend, a Saturday in Hot Springs, then a Sunday in Pine Bluff. I was there for both. And we said maybe they only do one of those this year. We brought that up as something we're hearing. Well, that was kind of reinforced to me over the weekend. That's probably what they're going to do. Will it be back in Hot Springs? Will it be back in Pine Bluff? Will it be somewhere else? We still don't know about a North Little Rock game. We know most of the schedule, 11 of the 13 non-conference games. We know the full 18-game SEC schedule, but we're not sure. We still don't know about a North Little Rock game yet for non-conference. And of course, again, there's 2 outstanding games, so maybe that's all taken care of good and well. But I circle back to the idea of would you play one of those roadshow things in Little Rock or Central Arkansas if you're not going to have a regular season game in North Little Rock? I think they probably will. I don't know why they wouldn't have the regular season game, but I don't know that. We're waiting to see. And so if not, then maybe you do it in Central Arkansas, more central than Pine Bluff and Hot Springs, and have it in Little Rock proper or North Little Rock for a roadshow event. I mean, again, we're kind of speculating, moving around here. But again, okay, so we're going to sign off now. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. So again, I'm still waiting on more feedback and the photos from the Brandon McCoy Jr. visit, which sounds like it's been really, really good. Another home run. Was it a grand slam? Not sure about that. I feel confident saying home run right now, but would be more confident even saying that with a little bit more. Maybe it gets up to grand slam proportions. Maybe it gets up to, if he had to commit tomorrow, it'd be Arkansas. Maybe it's, one of those things where Arkansas is the team to beat, but back-to-back weekends having these exceptional reports for both Caleb Holt and Brandon McCoy Jr., it's better than all the other alternatives that are out there. And so again, Calipari at the end of the day, laser focused on multiple 5-star level guys on the front line in this class and the backcourt. And it's players that it's not just that he's focused on, but have either visited or will visit on campus. He's going to get at least one from those position groups, and maybe more than one from one or both of those position groups. Again, you got J.J. Andrews on board. 2 to 4 is somewhere in that range of what could be left that Calipari finishes with. And it's all top shelf guys from there. And we'll run through the other players that are got visit scheduled. We've talked about what Calipari did on the road in those 2 days last week. We got a lot more to talk about as we look ahead, including paying attention to in this next week, guys like Caleb Holt and Brandon McCoy Jr. Does Cal go and see these guys, or does he give there some more cushion there before he does? Good afternoon, Kevin. Well, good afternoon. Okay, again, thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. Anybody that joined me late and just now saying good afternoon, go check it out. It's once we're done with the live part, it's archived there on our HogvilleNET YouTube channel. Appreciate everybody being here. Be great in all your endeavors. Hope you enjoyed your weekend. Hope you enjoyed the football win with the football Hogs over in-state A-State. Let's say that fast 4 or 5 times. And then Ole Miss on the road next week. That's a big one. But until next time, I appreciate all of you. See you soon.